with some pastrami and cheese melt and a king cake because today is, Fat Tuesday. So we got to have our king cake. My mom requested it, especially this. So I whipped up because the king cake needs to kind of rise. So I've prepped up my dough and I have it rising here. And this is just kind of a cinnamon swirl king cake for it. So my base of my cake is very similar to my cinnamon roll recipe, except I use a little bit more egg in it and a little bit more sugar in it for a nice little sweet card. But I'm going to make this a recipe card because it is so delicious on there. But what I did is, I bloomed my yeast, and then I had so 1 cup of warm milk, and then 4 cups of let's start with me. 1 cup of warm milk with 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast and about a tablespoon of sugar. Let that bloom. Then I added in a 1/2 cup of sugar, 2 eggs, a stick of butter, and I started off with 3 cups of flour and then about a teaspoon of salt. And we needed that in there. And then that last cup of flour you need on there. You're going to have a slightly tacky dough, but you want that because you don't want it to be too untacky because then it will be a denser base for it. You let that rise for about 30 to 40 minutes, and then we kind of rolled it out into this big long rectangle. And then I melted a 1/4 cup of butter, brushed it along the side, added a 1/2 cup of brown sugar sprinkled across, and about 2 tablespoons of cinnamon. And then we rolled that up nice and tight. And then I shaped it in my little ring. And you can see right here is where I kind of sealed them together. And then we covered them with some plastic wrap and let them do a second rise for about 30 to 40 minutes. And now what we're going to do is we're going to pop this guy in the oven for it can take anywhere between 25 to 35, around 25 to 35 minutes, depending on how thick yours is, how long you stretch it. This one's a pretty thick one, so I'm going to start him at 25 minutes and then we'll check them on there. 375 is the temperature you want to bake them at. So I'm going to set my time for 25 minutes, but it could take a little bit longer for it. Oh, my Valentine's Day present arrived. This is my new toaster. Perfect for our sourdough bread because look, it's a long slot. So it is a 4-piece toaster, but sourdough is so long, it goes in there perfectly. Otherwise, before when I was toasting it up, I'd have them at like an angle because I didn't want to cut them in half because I wanted my full slices. But now I don't have to do that anymore. I know it's a little bougie, but love it. Okay, while that is cooking up, let's get our chicken roasting for our green goddess soup, and then we're going to start working on that. I've got 2 chicken breasts. We're just going to do an oven roast on this. I'm going to season them up, and then we'll pop them in there and we'll shred them and add them to our soup towards the end. I'm going to do a couple little slices along my chicken breast. This is going to allow it to cook up a little bit faster, shred a little bit easier, and allow those spices to kind of permeate the chicken. So just slices right down the middle. And we're going to give it a nice little drizzle of Worcestershire. That will help keep it nice and juicy. And then our spices, we're going to do kind of a simple spice base on it. And we've got some garlic salt, some thyme, and some oregano. So pretty simple for it, but it will be delicious. And then we're going to just drizzle a little bit of olive oil over it as well. A little bit of oregano. And then, forgot to get my olive oil out. Let's grab this real quick. There's my big guy. And then just a light kind of drizzle over the top of each one. Try to be very light. There we go. Because when we shred it up, we'll actually kind of mix it into that olive oil, which will add a great little bit of flavor to our soup. Let's go pop this in the oven to just roast up underneath our king cake as it kind of cooks for this. And so when we check on our king cake after 25 minutes, I'll see if it's cooked all the way through and if it needs to be tented for the last part. But it's going to be so delicious. That's because it's like a cinnamon roll base, and it's just, who doesn't love a cinnamon roll? Okay, let's get on to sauteing up our onions and our kind of our base for our broth. For this soup, Earlier in the week, not this week, but I roasted up 2 chickens. And from those 2 chickens, I decided to make a stock from the carcasses because normally I don't have 2 chickens and one isn't quite enough to make a really good stock. But I took the 2 chicken carcasses after I like de-meated them, picked them all clean and kind of cut that. And then I put them in that big Dutch oven that I roasted them in. I just put them right back in there with all of their juices. And then I added in some onion and celery and carrots. And I made this lovely little stock where I cooked it overnight on low temperature for about, I want to say it was like 15 hours until I had this wonderful little stock. And I used that to make my little kind of chicken pot pie things that I had for my step-on that came to visit. And then also we're going to use the rest of it for this soup. So I don't always make my own stock, but when I have roasted chicken carcasses and a good amount, then yes, because it's too good not to. We've got 1 big onion here. And we're going to let this saute up in our pan with a little bit of things. And I'm actually going to use a little bit of the fat off of our stock here to saute it up in there because that was from our chicken thing. So a little bit of the chicken fat to kind of saute this off. So I'm just going to use my spoon. I pulled this out of the fridge, so it's still a little like underneath it will be gelatinous, but delicious. We're going to use this. That way we can bring those flavors right back into it and no need to waste any oil or whatnot. And get this going. Just a great way to reuse things and bring in that great flavor for this. So get that melting, and then I've got my onions. I'll let those start to saute up. Let me give my hands a quick rinse. Now, for this recipe, it's kind of like, we've all had like a green goddess salad or a dressing. It's kind of a play on that because I'm using pretty much all green bases, and then we'll have chicken and then some great northern beans. But we'll have spinach, zucchini, celery, some green onions, some fresh basil. So just kind of a nice hearty, kind of a green veggie base to it, which will be just lovely and kind of will go well with my stock. That's why I kind of wanted to use a really nice stock with it because it kind of just makes the flavors a little bit more intense. Okay, let me grab my little spoon to give this a quick toss. I can see that that little bit of that fat is starting to boil down. You can see or melt down. We'll give it a good toss and we'll let these onions start to cook in that. But that will have so much flavor, a nice chicken flavor, which will go right with our oven roasted chicken. Adds a bit more flavor. I'm going to steal a little teeny tiny bit more. Okay. Perfect. Okay, let's get our celery prepped for this, and then we'll get some garlic prepped. We're using a good amount of celery because that's going to add a nice herb, aromatic-y base to this soup, as well as a good, kind of stand-in vegetable for it. Here. Even though I rinsed these, I'm just going to give them another little rinse. There we go. And then I'm just going to chop off the very tips because I always find that those tips that have already been trimmed at the store tend to be pretty dried out and a little bit more stringy in texture. There we go. Turn that down to about a 6 now. And kind of finish up. And then we're going to just dice these up.
Can you go over what a green goddess soup is again?
So this is just a soup that has lots of green veggies in it. We're going to add some chicken and white beans for it, but it's just kind of like a play on like the green goddess salads and dressings where they're just based on having everything green in it. So we're going to actually blend a little bit of spinach and our broth with together to make almost like a green broth base to this soup. Gives it a really nice pop of color, but will be so delicious. But nice and kind of bright we've had kind of some great weather. So I wanted a kind of nice, lighter soup today.
Any green eggs in it?
No green eggs today. Although I was thinking about doing a ham sandwich. That would have been hilarious. Turn that up. And it has the smell of the chicken is just really, really wonderful in that. Okay, we've got that. We're gonna let the onions toast up a little bit more until they get a little bit more translucent. I'm gonna get some garlic going. But anytime you do have a chicken like carcass or two, I just used the exact same Dutch oven that I roasted it in. I filled it up with water, added a little bit of salt, some pepper, and some onions and carrots and celery. And I just, over like a medium low heat, just overnight, I just let it stew. And it just makes the most wonderful kind of stock base here. And you can see it just has this rich color. Once it heats up, that's just the natural fat in there. It will get nice and runny, but it's going to have so much more flavor and than your regular like store-bought one. And I just leave the whole carcasses in there, and essentially they break down, and then I just use a fine mesh strainer and I put it in there and I strain the broth through that so you don't get any little chunks and bits to it. And then I just put it in a little container and I use it up. It also freezes down well because the nice fat layer on the top really protects it. Kind of creates a nice seal. Okay.
You said it freezes well.
It does. It really does. And you can put it in if you have little extra mason jars or whatnot. You can pop them in there, and just that natural fat kind of caps it up on the top, which really prevents it from getting like a freezer burn or changing that flavor. But I can smells like roast chicken right now. Okay, let's get our garlic in there to kind of cook up. So there's going to be a lot of just like these aromatic vegetables. We're going to also use some fresh basil in our soup as well. We'll let these kind of hit and let that garlic hit for just a minute or two. And then we've got our zucchini that we'll saute up as well. It's funny, I kind of bought 5 zucchini at the beginning of the week, and I've already gone through all of them. I just kind of been one of those weeks where I've been kind of craving those nice kind of summery vegetables. We quartered them, and then we're going to slice them up into smaller kind of pieces. That way, they'll be a more bite size in our soup.
I don't think I've ever had a week like that. Randia Santiago.
Well, thank you, Randia. We appreciate that. One day you'll crave vegetables. One day. Might be on your deathbed, but you'll be like, I wish I ate more broccoli. It's funny. So my grandfather, my muffa, who grew up in Sweden and whatnot, and they had very cold winter months and whatnot. And they didn't back then, 40s and 50s and stuff. They actually 30s and 40s. They didn't have a lot of like fresh produce. So during the winter, you had a lot of canned foods or root vegetables. And he said his favorite thing would come around to spring when you would get your first spring, lettuces. And he goes, I just couldn't wait for a salad, just a nice, lovely salad. And this was like when he was a kid, because he looked forward to, he goes, I would be so tired of potatoes and canned, jarred vegetables and stuff like that. But having anything fresh was so appealing to him. And I always think that. And I said, nowadays, we all get like whatever we want, whenever we want from the store. And they used to talk about, my mom used to talk about how they would get like an orange as a part of their Christmas present. And that's because my grandparents, that was something special they got at Christmas as well, was an orange, because it was so, unique back then. And now it's like, oh, we eat oranges like every day. We've got our celery in here. We'll give it a nice saute, kind of bring in those more aromatic notes from this. And let's see. Let's get some spices in there to kind of bloom, get those heat going for it. And then we need to make a glaze for our king cake, and we'll work on our little sandwiches to kind of cook up as well. We're gonna add in, so I added in about a bay leaf and a half. We're gonna do about a teaspoon of oregano. Yeah, a little bit more. And then a half a teaspoon of thyme. I find thyme's a bit stronger, so I don't add quite as much, but I find it's lovely. There we go. And then we will add in fresh basil at the very end, but I want it to kind of be a fresh flavor versus a cooked down flavor. So we're going to let those get a little bit of heat before we add in our zucchini. Okay. While we're waiting, let me grab a small bowl over here. Those are too big. So many bowls. We got to make our glaze for our king cake. And that way we can let it sit and kind of thicken up so that we're ready for it when it comes out. I'm just going to make kind of a basic vanilla glaze for this, but then we have our decorating sugars that we'll sprinkle over the top. We have purple, yellow, and green, which are the common colors for it. I feel like each one represents like a different, like it's like power, order, and justice for the colors. There's like a representation for it, but I've been in New Orleans like for a couple of times for around Mardi Gras time, and it's like parades, but not just there. It's like the weeks leading up to them, and it's a fun place to go. Just a lot of great people watching, I should say. We're gonna add in. I'm gonna do a nice richer one, so we're gonna do about, because we need a good amount. We're gonna do about 2 tablespoons of cream with a little bit more. With about a teaspoon of vanilla extract, so a nice kind of vanilla glaze. You can also sub in milk or half and half if you want a slightly thinner glaze, but I want one that's a little bit richer. And then we're going to add in our powdered sugar. We'll do a little by little until we get the consistency we want. I want it to be a little bit thicker than my normal one because I want it to kind of really sit well on top of it. So a little bit thicker than glue, but not quite where you have to, spread it on. But where we'll go over and we'll kind of pipe it on there, I'll just pop it in a little piping bag and have it drizzle over nicely. And I will say, depending on whether you use milk, half and half, or cream, is going to vary with the amount of powdered sugar you're going to need to use. And then I'm just going to mix this until I've got all of those little chunks out because we don't want any, little beads of powdered sugar. But we've got a good, nice kind of drizzle here. Thicker than our normal one, but not so thick that you can't let it ooze down a little bit. Okay. Let me wipe this little bit of powdered sugar off because I don't want a little sugar on my sandwich. It's not a Monte Cristo, which I was kind of the other day. I didn't have ham at the time, but I was really craving a Monte Cristo. And it's one of those sandwiches I never ever order, but it was like, I kind of really want one. And so I might have to do that. Yes, it is like, I think you would love it because it is almost like a French toast sandwich, but it's a more savory, but you batter the outside of it and you fry it, but then you have cheese and ham inside. And you love those like sweet and savory. Okay, so last night we baked up a new sourdough loaf. We did, my husband said this outside of my cinnamon swirl was his favorite loaf yet. This was my rosemary, black pepper, and garlic, and I kind of did a little swirl in it with the black pepper. I've got to have to even this out because apparently I did not cut even at all last night. But we're going to use this to make our sandwiches. After lots of belly aching from the cameraman saying we didn't have enough for sandwiches, I have decided to switch back to my big loaves, which is the...
We all know I'm not eating.
Yes. That's why he's getting a pastrami on. That's why I knew he wasn't going to touch our soup. But I love this soup. My parents love this soup. It will be a delicious soup. He will have his pastrami and rye and his king cake, and he will be very content. Okay. We got our first slices, and I will say it did. I always feel like my bigger loaves always bake up a little bit smaller than my smaller loaves. The ratio of the recipe is the same, but it always just springs a little bit nicer. Yeah. Switch that, reverse it. You know what I mean. Got to keep up with my brain. And get this last. There we go. 2 good sized sandwiches, which are really actually are better suited for 4 people if you eat the soup. If without the soup, sandwich is good, but I eat the soup, so I typically eat half a sandwich on there. Let's give this a quick stir. We're going to add our zucchini in, and we'll let that saute up for just a second. And give it a little stir around here. You can smell that oregano and thyme with that chicken, the chicken fat we kind of cooked it in. It smells so good. Okay, let's start getting these prepped. We're going to use a little bit of room temperature butter, just a little bit on one side of each slice of bread. Try to find your smoothest side to spread it on. If you find one that has a pretty rough edge on it, it doesn't crisp up as well. Just the peaks of it gets nice and toasted. Yeah. And looking good. For our cheese, because I like to do a more mild cheese with pastrami because it's a pretty strong seasoned flavor, like a seasoning on the meat. We're going to use Gouda. So let me grab my little cheese slicer. And grab this guy out. He wants to open for me. This is the first time I've seen Cabot with the Gouda cheese, which I love Cabot cheese because I remember as a kid, they were like one of the first kind of aged cheddars that you could get. So there we go.
You got a question? Where's the mousse?
The mousse, I think I used it earlier for breakfast to have a little slice of cheese on my bread. So I told you I've got a lot of these guys. So he's in there. So we've got our little base layer of our cheese for it. And I find it's easier, instead of doing it the big one, turn it and do the thinner way because your cheese grater can only go through that way anyways. And let's see, before we do that, let's get a little bit of broth in here and get that going for this. Okay. We're going to use a mixture. I'm going to pull up some of this fat to the side because I don't want to put it all in there, but we'll put some for it. So look at that. Jiggly, jiggly, jiggly.
Can you explain the different uses of them?
The uses. Oh, for our stock right here. This is our stock that we made from our roasted chicken the other day. So it will just once you heat it up, it's going to turn back into a liquid. It has lots of great flavor to it. That top layer on it that is more white is actually the fat from the chicken that has solidified on the top. So I kind of sauteed it up with our vegetables. And we're going to use a mixture of this because I am going to use a little bit of water as well. for it because it is a really intense flavor because it's kind of reduced down for it. And I've been using this. It's just so good. Put a little bit in there. So it's more like, I will say it's like a reduction that has so much full flavor for it. But it's made, as you can see, it's already back into being a nice liquid base for it. And when I use it, I don't heat it up, like heat the whole thing up at a time, just spoon out what you need. That way you're not heating and like refrigerating and heating and refrigerating over and over. And we had about, I would say there's about a cup or so in there. So I'm going to add in about 2 cups of liquid and then we'll taste it and see where we're at. And again, it has lots of flavor in there from our roasted chicken. We added salt and pepper and bay leaves, onions, carrots when we made it. And it kind of just stewed overnight in our big kind of Dutch oven on the counter here. Was that huge one I have.
And can you go over what the soup is?
Yes, so right now we're making a green goddess soup, which is going to be full of lots of green veggies in there. And we'll add in some roasted chicken. But we have in here right now onions, celery, zucchini, garlic, oregano and thyme, and a bay leaf. And we're going to let that simmer with our homemade stock for a little bit. We're going to add in some spinach, but we're also going to take some of the stock out with the spinach and we're going to blend it to make almost this lovely kind of spinachy base to it. That will be like almost like a green broth, make it even more like a green goddess. Put our cheese here. I'm going to get my little griddle pan going here, heating up. I'm going to check my, we got to go over there because it's about 20 seconds left. Look at that perfect timing. I was like, this should be just about ready. Let me grab real quick, just in case it needs to bake longer, but it needs tinting. I'm going to grab some aluminum foil because sometimes, depending on how thick you make it, but we'll take a quick peek. So this is our king cake, and we've got our chicken roasting underneath it. But again, we had about 5 seconds left on it. Ooh, it looks like it's perfect, that we don't need anything else in there. You can see my cinnamon roll base of it is coming out, but look at that beautiful thing here. And I'm gonna just bring this up and we'll let that roast up just a little bit longer for it. So we had this in there for about 25 minutes. We're gonna let it cool and then we will coat it with our frosting. There we go. But don't put it on right away or it will drizzle right off. But it's like a big kind of cinnamon roll base to it. So you've got your kind of your bread base with it, but it has a little bit more egg in it and a little bit more sugar for it. But we have this nice, rich kind of golden brown color to it. But we'll cover it up, and then when you bake into it, bite into it, it'll have this lovely like swirl.
Your question, is there a baby in it?
There is not a baby in it because I did not have a heat-resistant baby. I am like tempted that once it cools down, I have lots of little baby toys in our house. I might find one of the little Barbie babies and hide it in there once it's completely cooled. But knowing this, if I put something in there, it would have melted and out there. I know maybe I'll be more prepared next year. I completely forgot about it. My mom was like, you need to make a king cake. And I was like, ooh, I do need to make a king cake. They're so good too. Let's see. Apparently I can't open this. There we go. We've got our pastrami. And pastrami is like it's a very seasoned meat, which is lovely. And I think it's going to play really well with our spiced bread here, which has rosemary and black pepper in it. Traditionally, pastrami is served on a rye bread, but this will be you'll get those same flavors, a little bit more mellow, but that rosemary I think will really pop with the pastrami. I'm not going to go too crazy with the meat because if you go too heavy, it's not going to melt. The cheeses won't melt up as nicely. Get my hands a quick rinse. And then we're going to slice up some pickles to put on there because with the pastrami, I find that you need a little saltiness in there to cut through it.
Question, what's the king cake for?
It's just to have because it's Fat Tuesday. We're just gonna have. I like to make a little treat every single day, either like a muffin based thing, and it's kind of like a cinnamon roll. But we're gonna have that up today. Really to keep my husband happy. Because the green goddess is not really up his alley. So we got some little pickles here. I'm going to slice these guys up nice and thin. Also, a lot of times you'll see like sauerkraut used with them, similar to how you would do like a Reuben. But I'm going to use the pickles because you need a little bit kind of that little briny action going in there. It just adds this little extra flavor that I think is just perfect. Not a whole lot. I don't go crazy. Although if my 10-year-old was here, she would be like, put pickle, 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 pickle. It would just be a pickle sandwich. And then my secret ingredient, which isn't too secret, but really is the best thing ever. You're just going to do a nice little drizzle of Chick-fil-A sauce. It has this like sweetness to it that just pairs well with the pastrami, which has like, I feel like a slight sweetness to it. And then the pickle and everything, it just works well. And we'll do our next layer of Gouda because it's so good. Slice this guy on there. Put our top layers on. Put that guy the right way. And we'll let these guys kind of toast up and kind of get cooking here. I'm going to taste my broth to see if I need to add anything else to it. If I need to add a little bit of regular chicken bouillon for it, or if it's got enough flavor. Might add a little. I want to save that. I don't want to use all of it up because it had such a unique flavor. So let me grab a little bit of chicken bouillon here to support it out for it because I just want a little bit more. Let me grab a spoon. We're just going to add in a little. I need a little bit more saltiness, as you say. So just a small kind of teaspoon base in here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of this brothy base out with some spinach, and we're going to blend it into kind of like a green kind of brothy base for it. Where is it? Right here. And this is going to make, I don't want to do the whole soup because I just want the spinach kind of blended in there, but it will give it a really cool color, one, and then a nice flavor. But, and then we'll add in chopped up spinach as well. But it's just kind of a fun way to do it. Part of me was thinking, I was like, ooh, maybe I should make like a sog type soup. And I was like, oh, that would be good. Kind of a little play on that. I have a lot of spinach. Yeah. I was like, it'll be good. So we're going to add in some good amount of spinach here. And then I'm going to spoon a couple spoonfuls of this warm broth over it. It's okay if you get a couple of the vegetables in it. That's not a big deal. But then we'll blend it to get our little base for it. And this will add, again, a nice, really pretty green color to our soup. And then we'll add in a bunch of chopped up spinach. I'm going to turn this soup down to a lower simmer. I'll do one more spoonful. And then we're going to put our lid on. And then I'm just going to take it over here for a quick blend for it. You see, we've got this lovely kind of green base to it. It will add right into it. And it's going to add, again, a really fun color to your soup. Makes it kind of cool, but it'll just bring in that spinach, a little bit more of it, but it's just bringing it to that more of that green goddess moments here. And now we'll add in some more of our chopped up spinach. We're going to get our beans in, and we'll have to add in our shredded chicken here in just a little bit. but it will give a nice smoothness to the broth, make it a little bit richer, but it's still, again, pretty simple. We'll wait to add those in. Let's get our beans here. So I'm going to use a white bean, like a Great Northern. You can do a cannellini bean or cannellini bean. I never say that right. But simple, I feel like the lighter colored beans work a little bit nicer in these recipes because they're not as strong of a flavor. And it's pop, it pops well with it. We'll give them a quick rinse. And then we'll hop this in here, add a good base to our soup. Good mix up. Look how pretty it is. And then we're going to add the rest of our spinach in just a little bit. You don't want to add it in too soon or it will completely wilt away for it. Let me check on my our little grilled cheeses going here. See if they're heated up and are ready to flip. And then once our king cake, I'm going to give it a little tap, see how much it's cooled down. I'm about ready to. We will kind of coat it up with our frosting and our decorating sugars. Okay, a little bit longer to kind of get that nice heating up on it. But let's go grab our chicken out of the oven. It should be nice and cooked so we can shred it and then add it back into our soup. And this is just 2 chicken breasts that we seasoned up with Worcestershire, thyme, garlic salt, and a little bit of oregano and some olive oil. But it should be cooked up all the way through here. Turn off my oven now. And we'll let it sit for just a second so that it's not super, super hot when I go to shred it, but it should shred up really easily. And then we're going to actually put those juices that have come back out into the soup as well to add a great flavor to it. But that will just add a nice little protein into the soup and a good amount of flavor as well. So, not completely all green. We've got our first set kind of warming up our base of our little sandwiches here. And then the second one after we do it is kind of this is the heating up, this getting the start of the melt, and then it's getting that nice toasting one. Because I find if you try to toast it too much on the first side, then by the time you get through, your cheese isn't melted, but your bread is kind of really toasted. Have a nice little taste here. Delicious. Let's slide this over here. We're going to have some green onions and fresh basil that we'll add into the soup as well, which will add a nice little freshness to it. Nice little pop of flavor. Got lots of greens. We'll do this. I'm going to give these a quick rinse. Leeks would be wonderful in this soup. This was just one of those, I'm going to make this soup. No specialty, just kind of came to me while I was taking a shower today. That's a lot of times with my, recipes or when I'm craving, I'm like, I want to do something like this. I was thinking about a green goddess salad and I was like, ooh, I bet you I can make a soup along with those same kind of concept.
You have a question? Do you know what's for dinner tonight? So
dinner tonight, unfortunately, will not be happening. My daughter has a soccer game at 7, so we won't be getting home until a little after 9-ish. So I most likely we will be picking up, my guess is Chipotle, on our way home from the soccer game for that. So I know it's crazy, a Tuesday night game, but I'm glad we're getting it in because we have a pretty big game this weekend that we have to drive like 5 hours for. So it's good to get a little bit of practice in after the things. But we're going to be dropping our recipe cards this evening as well. So just be on the lookout for that for our members on there. So, which will be delicious. Let's get our fresh basil. This fresh basil, these green onions, we'll add those at the very end, which will add a really pop of freshness to the soup, which again makes it wonderful. I think we're ready to flip this guy. Okay, now we're ready for the toasting up on each side of it to get that nice kind of crispy edge for it. Bring these right here on there. And then I'm going to slide this out of the way so that we can frost our king cake here in just a second. You always want to let your king cake just kind of cool off just a little bit, because if it's too hot, then you're going to, it will run right off. Okay, but we have a good thick base for that. And let me grab, let's see, we can grab a piping bag here. And that way I can kind of pipe it over with our frosting, because our glaze, it's a little bit of a thicker one, which will add a nice little bit of a flavor to it, or like a thickness to it. And this was just made with our, vanilla cream and powdered sugar, but it will be delicious.
Anything hidden in the cake?
No, unfortunately, I did not have a heat-safe toy to put in there, a baby. But I said next year I'll be prepared. I will make sure I have one for it, because that's the most fun part about it, is finding the baby. Although I will say in the past, like we would have like my mom would always get king cakes, and then at Christmas time, she'd always make, the Christmas pudding. And there's a tradition with the Christmas pudding that has slivered almonds in it. And if you got the whole almond, you were going to be like the next person to get married or have a baby. And she would always strategically place the whole almond in certain ones. And the same thing with the baby. She would always strategically place the king cake baby in the person that she was like, hi, I think you guys are ready to have a child. We do the Thompson cakes with our little Thompson guy in there. And got this ready to kind of pipe on here. And then we'll be ready to shred up our chicken here in just a second. I'm going to slide this guy over here. Let me give it a feel. We'll let it sit for just a second. We'll shred our chicken up, and then we're going to do this. Again, I just don't want it to ooze over too much. I want it to stick on there. But let's get our chicken going and shred it up into our soup, and then we'll add in our spinach, and we'll finish this off for it. So to shred the chicken up, it's really, really easy once you've made those little, just grab 2 forks, and you're just going to tear with your chicken like this. And it should all just shred off nicely. You don't have to do a lot of work. And you could always take it out of here, but we're going to be using those nice drippings in here. I'm being careful not to touch the bottom of my pan because I don't want to ruin it. And, I always like to get on my stepdad for ruining my pans, or my kids, but I'm going to be very, very careful. I never ruin any of my stuff. It's never me. Although I will say there was this one like string of events where I was like bringing soups over to my parents' house. And at the time I was just bringing them over in my Dutch ovens, my little Le Creuset ones. And it was like, my stepdad somehow managed to shatter like the handle on all of my Dutch ovens. I was like, what happened to it? I mean, he replaced it because you can buy the little replacement handles. But I was like, how did you manage to do that? And there he goes, I don't know. They just fell. And I was like, how did they fall? These Dutch ovens weigh a lot. It's not like you're carrying them precariously. Here we go. Just about have these guys nice and shredded up in here to add into our soup. Again, just our chicken breast seasoned with some garlic, salt, Worcestershire, a little bit of olive oil, some oregano, and some thyme. So really simple seasonings. That Worcestershire has helped keeping it nice and juicy. This is also, you don't have to use it for a soup. This is just a great way if you want some shredded chicken for a meal, that you can do it with minimal effort. And that's the nice thing is make it easier. Don't make it harder. Beautiful. Let's get this finished up. Our last little toasting there is looking amazing. I'm going to turn it down nice and low, get that last little steam on. Let's add our chicken in here with all of the juices and everything, because that's going to add some more flavor to our green goddess soup. Beautiful. And it's really cool. It's just a fun, bright color, isn't it? And that's just the spinach pureed up. And you've got to use fresh spinach pureed, because if you use cooked spinach, it's going to have a little bit of, it'll have a darker color. I'm going to add in a couple leaves of spinach so that it can kind of wilt down for this. Spinach, again, wilts down to nothing, so it's one of those things that I add at the very end to my soup. So we'll kind of push it underneath that broth, and then we're going to let that kind of simmer for a second, and then at the very end, we'll add in our green onions and our basil for that really burst of freshness. This is looking fabulous. Beautiful. Okay, push that under there. And now let's go finish up our king cake. That's what we're most excited for, guys. Okay, let me cut the tip of my little glaze right here. Now, if you don't have a piping bag, Ziploc baggies work wonderful. That's what I did for years before I, decided to buy a 500 count bag of these, and I'm still using them. And that was like 6 years ago. Trying to make sure I have enough to get to the very end. Look at that, perfect. So we've got it. It's still a little toasty, but no worries. And then you just got to do your little, some they do it in like thirds, or you can do it a little kind of sprinkle everywhere. It's still melting. That's okay. It will be delicious. We've got our glaze going on there and our sprinkles. A little bit more purple. It's funny how it's like melting on some sides, but not on the others, because it's hotter in the middle, but no worries. Look how beautiful. And voila, we've got a king cake. So delicious. Okay, let's check this guy out. I think we're tuck these right underneath, and then our grilled cheeses should be just about ready, and we can get ready to serve up our lunch here. Check on them. Beautiful. Look at that. Nice. Perfect. Get you guys see, slide this guy underneath a little bit longer. I love this spatula. It's a fish spatula, but it is the best for making grilled cheeses. Okay, let's finish off our soup. We've got our fresh green onions that we're going to add in here. That's going to add a nice burst of kind of a fresh onion flavor, and then our fresh basil as well. Again, both of these are going to add just a really great burst of flavor. Okay. And let's slide this guy out of the way. And let's get ready to serve up our lunch here. Okay. So yummy. Bring this guy right over here. Because he's so pretty. And then we're going to grab a plate and a little bowl. Ooh, I'm going to use my green plate today because it's our green